Okay, the first sheet is showing you the different sections like E1A, E2B, E1C, E1D, and let me go down while I was on this. E1E and E1F. Okay, those are the sections. So we start off, and the sections in the book jump around. They take questions that are or subject matter and put them in with the other subject matter. So you may see when I get to an E1A and I may all of a sudden jump to an E1C or something. That's the way the book did it in their presentation of the material. Okay, they did list the questions in the groups like A, B, C, D, E, and F and that. So we go to the first page. Let's see. Okay, there's the first page. Let's see. Okay, here it is. Okay, first page starts off with E1A01. Which of the following frequencies is illegal for LSB AF SK mission on a 17-meter band, RIDI and data segment of 18.068 to 18.110 megahertz? If you look at the answer, you take the 18.068 megahertz, since you're working on the lower side band, and subtract 3 kilohertz from it, and it equals 18.065. So if you transmitted on 18.068, it'd be illegal because your transmission would be outside of the band. Okay, the next one, when using a transceiver that displays the carrier frequency of a phone signal, which of the following display frequencies represents the lowest frequency at which a properly adjusted lower sideband emission would be totally within the band? On lowest sideband, no closer than 3 kilohertz above the band edge. Okay, the next question is E1A03. What is the maximum legal carrier frequency on 20 meters band for transmitting upper sideband AFSK digital signals having a 1 kilohertz bandwidth? So you go up to, since this is upper sideband, it could be added to the frequency. So if you take 150 and it should be a plus there, I guess. No, I take that back. It's a minus, and it equals 14,149 megahertz is the maximum legal frequency you can transmit at and be within the band. Okay, let's see. Let me go to the next one. Okay, with your transceiver displayed the carrier frequency of the phone signal, you hear a DX station calling CQ on 3.601 megahertz lower sideband. Is it legal to return the call using lower sideband on the same frequency? So you go again, you take the 3.061, which is the lowest, his frequency, and subtract 3.0 kilohertz from it, you get 3.598. No, the frequency is out of the band, so you can't return that signal. Okay, the next one is, what is the maximum power output permitted on a 60-meter band? Output is limited to 100 watts EPR, which stands for effective radiated power. And the next one is E1A05. What must the carrier frequency of a CW signal be set to comply with FCC rules of 60-meter operation? CW is permitted with the carrier frequency set to the specified channel center frequency because the carrier has no modulation on it. So the frequency is right at the carrier frequency you set. Okay, the next one, what is the maximum power permitted on a 2200 meter band? The power limit is 1 watt EIRP, again, equivalent isotropic radiated power. Okay, let's go on.
I can't read the text too much here. That block that says this meeting being recorded is blocking everything.
What was that?
You can just, there should be a thing on there to click OK, and that'll clear it.
All right. If you wanted to ask a question.
I think Sven had the little message that we were recording covering it up. Mike, can you go ahead and zoom in a little bit on the bottom right? They've got the little slider down there. If you click the button, that'll enlarge the text, make it a little bit easier to see. Yeah, that looks better. Thanks.
Can I move this? Can I move it over to the left and then get out of the pictures and give it a little larger? Is it it's centered on the screen?
Sure. Give it a try.
Okay, let's see how I can.
I scooted the block up to the left corner there, upper corner there. That seems to be help.
It's not moving. So let me just go back here. All right, I can go just a little bit down maybe. Okay. All right, I guess I can read it here. So I'll give you the last words if it goes off the screen. Okay, let me go to E18. Okay, E18, if a station a message forwarding system inadvertently forwards a message that is in violation of the FCC rules, who is accountable for the rule violation? The FCC holds the originating station primarily responsible. So I guess that says if you forward it, you're all right, but you can't originate it outside the band. Okay, A109, what action or actions you should take if your digital message forwarding station inadvertently forwards a communication in the violation of FCC? You should, of course, immediately discontinue forwarding that message to the other stations. Okay, next one. If an amateur station is installed aboard a ship or aircraft, what conditions must be met before the station is operated? You want to operate on board a ship or aircraft, you must have the radio installation approved by the master of the ship or the pilot in command of the aircraft. Which of the following describes authorization or licensing requirements when operating an amateur station aboard a U.S. registered vessel in international waters? Your FCC amateur radio license is all that is needed. Who must be in physical control of the station apparatus of an amateur station aboard any vessel or craft that is documented or registered in the U.S.? You must have an FCC issued amateur license or reciprocal operating permit. Okay, except in some parts of Alaska, what is the maximum power on the 630 meter band? On 630, which is just below the AM broadcast band, amateurs allowed a maximum power of 5 watts EIRP, equivalent isotropic radiated power.
Hey, Mike, can you please scroll through the document on the screen?
Oh, okay. Well, that was so much for me reading it. Let's see, just a second. Okay, we're getting now. I went through all those. Okay, page 4. All right, E1B01. Which of the following constates a spurious emission? SE is defined as a spurious emission as an emission of frequencies outside the necessary bandwidth of a transmission, the level of which may be reduced without affecting the information being transmitted. Is any y'all understand that? Any questions about that one? Okay, we'll go on. E1B03, within what distance must an amateur station protect an FCC monitoring facility from harmful interference? Your station will be located within 1 mile of the FCC facility. Then you have to do something about that. Okay, what must be done before placing an amateur station within an officially designated wilderness area or wildlife preserve or on or an area listed in the National Register of Historic Places? You may be required to submit an environmental assessment to the FCC. Let me go down now. Okay. Which of the following additional rules apply if you are installing an amateur station at a, I don't know what that is. Let's see. That's E16. At a site at or near a public use airport. Further height limitations may apply. You must obtain approval from the FAA in such cases. To what type of regulation does PRB-1 apply? It is an FCC regulation which requires states and local or municipal zoning to make an amateur reasonably accommodations for amateur radios. Okay. What limitations may the FCC place on amateur station that its signal causes interference to domestic broadcast reception if the receiver involved or of good engineering design? The FCC can impose limit quiet periods on amateur station of the frequency that the case is interfered. Okay, let's see.
All right, I got a question.
Okay.
This is Emil. That 104 question, I'm guessing that's more of a permanent station rather than a first thing that comes to mind about that one was the parks on
104?
104.
Let's see.
PRB.
No, not PRB. It's the designated wilderness and wildlife preserves. I'm thinking the first thing that came to mind was parks on the air. I mean, I'm guessing this question is more related to like if you're going to permanently set something up, or is it not?
Okay, let me look in the ARL book just a second. If anybody else has the answer, go ahead, but I have to look it up. Okay, we're looking at, that's E1B.
As an aside, the next question, which is 06, they're talking about using a amateur station near a public use airport. I've had occasion to do that before, and the approval you can get from the tower. So in case, you don't call up FAA in Washington, you can obtain approval from the tower at the airport.
Oh, okay, like a FAA official there, huh?
Okay, here's the total write-up for that 104. If the land on which your station is located has environmental importance or is significant in American history, architecture, or culture, you may be required to take action as described in a 97.13A. I guess that's a standard or something. I don't know what that is. For example, if your station will be located within the boundaries of an officially designated wildlife area, wildlife preserve, or an area listed in National Register of Historic Places, you may be required to submit an environmental assessment to the FCC. So I don't know, I would think it'd be a permanent station that if you go, I mean, if you drive in and drive out, I don't know.
Sounds like it probably optional, because like Parks on the Air, we did it at as a club at Chalmette Battlefield, and we didn't have to do. We did talk to the people that worked there, but they didn't make us do any kind of a assessment form.
Okay, thanks, guys.
All righty, let's see, where were we? We're going from question 8. Okay, which amateur station may be operated under RACES, which stands for Radio Amateur Civil Emergency Service rules? To participate, they must be certified by the responsible civil defense organization for the area service. Okay, EB 10. What frequencies are authorized to an amateur station operating under race, rules? Answer, in general, all amateur frequencies are available to stations participating in races operations. Okay, E1B11. What does RPB-1 require of the regulations affecting amateur radio? PRB-1 by no means prevents any restrictions on amateurs or stations, but it does require that regulations consider the needs of the amateur. Okay, E1C03. How do control operator responsibilities of a station under automatic control differ from one under local control? So the compliance with the FCC rules is achieved without the control operator being present. Let's see. Present at a control point. So that, okay, let's go down a little bit. Okay. EC 105. When may an automatically controlled station originate third-party communications? Automatically controlled stations may only relay third-party communications, never allowed to originate the message. Okay. What is the maximum permissible duration of a remotely controlled station transmission if its control link malfunctions? Should the limit continuous transmission, it should be limited continuous transmissions to no more than 3 minutes. What is the definition of telemetry? The general term of any one-way transmission of measurement to a receiver located at a distance from the measurement instrument. Okay, let's see. Okay, E2D. Which of the following may transmit special codes intended to obscure the meaning of the message? Unauthorized telecommand signals would likely disrupt or even damage the satellite. For this reason, the FCC allows telecommand stations to use special codes that are intended to obscure the meaning of the telecommand message. Okay, let's Okay, ED 103. What is a space telecommand station? A station that transmits communications to a satellite to initiate, modify, or terminate the various functions of a space station is a space telecommand operation. Stations that transmit these command communications are telecommand stations. E1D07. Which HF amateur band have frequency authorized for space? On HF bands, a space station may only operate on 17, 15, 12, and 10 meter band. Let's see. And on portions of the 40 and 20 meter bands. Which VHF amateur bands have frequency authorized for space stations? Segments of the 2 meter band. Which UHF amateur bands have frequency authorized for space stations? Segments of the 70 centimeter, 23 centimeter, 13 centimeter, and some microwave bands are also available for space station operation. E1D10, which amateur stations eligible to be telecommand stations of space stations subject to the privilege of the class of operator license held by the control operator of the station? Any amateur station may be a satellite telecommand station subject to the restrictions of the control operator's license class. Okay, I guess that's saying if you got a technician license, you can't transmit on 10 meters or 17 meters or those other frequencies. Okay, let's go to D10. Why did I read that one already? I read that one already. Okay, D11. Which amateur stations are eligible to operate as Earth stations? Any amateur station can operate as a Earth station if the privilege of the license allows the operator to use the frequencies and modes on the satellite operate. Oops, I went too far on that one. Okay, Don, this one's for you. For which type of out-of-pocket expenses do the Part 97 rules state that the VE and the VEC may be reimbursed? The cost includes actual out-of-pocket expenses involved with preparing, processing, and administrating the license exam. Not much, huh?
Well, it basically says you can't make a profit. And that's
got
one of
you.
the reasons that our testing fee may very well go down to $5 next year.
Okay. Well, I'm not waiting next year.
Yeah, but the FCC is going to start to charge $35 to get a license.
Yeah, I got you. Okay, but so they give it to you, the test will be cheaper, but the license will be more expensive, huh? I got you. All right, E1E02. What does Part 97 task with maintaining the pool of questions for all U.S. amateur license exams? All of the VECs must cooperate in development and maintenance of the questions used on the exam. The set of the questions available to be asked on exam is called a question pool.
And we do that.
Can you do what? I think that might be the next question. Huh?
As a VEC, we participate in designing the new question pool.
Okay.
So the group that we belong to is called the NC VEC, which stands for the National Council of VECs.
I got you. And how often can y'all add questions or get a new pool? Like, you know, every 5 years?
We rearrange and add new questions every 4 years, which means that, and then we stagger them so that the technician happens 1 year, general happens the next, extra happens the next, and then we get a year off.
I got you. All righty. Okay, what is the volunteer examiners coordinator? The volunteer examiner coordinator is an organization that has entered into agreement with the FCC to coordinate, prepare, administer amateur license examinations. Which of the following best describes the volunteers examiner's accreditation? The accreditation process is simply the steps that each VEC takes to ensure their VEs meet all the FCC requirements to serve in the volunteer examiners program.
Don, you want to talk about, how JARC does the qualification and the accreditation?
Sure. The first of all, we recognize any other VE from any other VEC if it's a valid and if it hasn't expired. Secondly, we will basically use the ARRL test to certify VEs, and they have to pass the ARRL test, which is of course an open book test. So, how hard can it be? But anyway, we'll use their test in order to certify VEs. And in the past, we've had our own issuance of a certification on a little card that we give people. I think we'll probably pick that up again as soon as we get a laminating, dedicated laminating person to do that and to pick it back up. And right now we're talking about having remote groups, remote organizations do testing on their own and send their results to us for submission to the FCC directly. And we will ask them to follow what we call our policies and procedures manual, which is about a 30-page manual that we extracted from the VEC that's over in the Carolinas. And in the preamble, we thank them voluminously for their contribution to our policies and procedures.
Where were we on E105? What is the minimum passing score on all amateur operator license examination? The score of 74% is the minimum to pass exam, and our exam I think has 50 questions, so it's 37 out of 50. Okay, E106, who is responsible for proper conduct and necessary supervision during an amateur operator's license examination session? All the VEs are responsible for supervising the examination session and must be present during the entire exam session, observing the candidates to ensure that the session is conducted properly. What should a VE do if a candidate fails to comply with the examiner's instruction during an amateur operator's license exam? If any candidate fails to comply with a VE's instruction during an exam, the VE team should immediately terminate the candidate's exam. To which of the following examinees may a VE not administer an exam? Extra class, what happened there? Oh, that's, y'all see that or not? I gotta get off of there. Okay, there you go. Where were we? Okay, this E1E08. Okay, to which of the following examiner may be a VE not administering an exam? Extra class by VE having an extra license. General exam by an advanced or extra class. Technician by an advanced or general or extra class. So they still at least account for my advanced license. I can give it to a general. Okay.
Don, do you want to explain that a little bit?
Yeah, the first part especially.
I think it's worded poorly, but of course we've got to show you the answer that's actually in the test. But in order to be certified as an extra by test, you have to be tested by extra VEs, because the question pools that are available through the test we don't want to give those away to anybody other than an extra class license. We wouldn't have a general administering a test with extra questions because we would be giving away the questions to the general should he want to become an extra. And similarly for technician, we have to have somebody higher than a technician, which is advanced general or extra, giving the test for technician. And the same thing goes for general. They have to be advanced or extra. So it kind of works its way like a little pyramid for who can administer a test for which exam.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Say again.
This is George. I think perhaps we have two very similar questions with the answers mixed up. The book on this question is looking for the answer is a family member of the VE. So it's not about the levels of the VEs and how they cascade down to be able to test lower levels. This one is saying this is an ethics question. You can't test a family member.
Mike, can you get to that in the book?
Yeah, I'm doing that right now. I'm just slow. Okay.
So basically we have the wrong answer to the right question.
Or the right answer to the wrong question. Yeah.
It was a little confusing reading that first part. Why can't an extra VE give an extra?
Okay.
Yeah, the word "not" is an important word in the question.
Okay. Here's
Yes.
this what's written in the book. Extra class exams must be administered by VEs holding extra class license. To administer a general exam, you must hold an advanced or amateur extra license. To administer a technician license exam, you must hold a general, advanced, or amateur extra license. Period. VEs are prohibited from administering exams to close relatives as defined by the FCC. So I guess I left that one out to answer.
Okay.
There is a statement after that that says VEs, it's, after this amateur extra license period on that one. Then the next statement in the book says VEs are prohibited from administering exams to close relatives as defined by the FCC. So there is another, on that particular one, there is another statement that should be in here on the bottom that says that VEs are prohibited from administering exams to close relatives as defined by the FCC, plus the class of license type of thing. So it's got two parts of the answer.
Right. And are we sure that applies to the question E1E08?
Yeah, because what they did in the book here, I don't know if I show you on here, but if you look here on the book, if I show it up, get it close as I can to it, down there, right after the thing, they got a question number, right after the statement, which goes along with that question. I don't know if this is the particular one. No, that's 5. Let's see what it is. Let's see if I can get 8.
Yeah, if you look in the 87 FO guide, all of that
Right.
is explained in there.
Right at the bottom. I don't know if you can see it or not, but if you look in the book, the answer is written before the question number, and they had the question number in the parentheses. So I guess I stopped on just the class of license and didn't go ahead and say that you can't be a father-son relationship, or whatever the FCC approves. So it's like I say, it's 2 parts of that answer. So I'll go ahead and add that in afterwards and put this back on Zoom.
Good. That's great.
8. Okay, the next one, let's go up. Going down. All right, there you go. E9. What may be the penalty for a VE who fraudulently administers or certifies an examination? The VE could lose their amateur station license and have their operator privileges suspended. Okay. E1, E10. What must the administering VE do after the administration of a successful examination of an amateur operator license? After an exam session, the VE team must submit the application forms and test papers of all of the candidates who passed the coordinating VEC to the VEC. All right, let me read that again. I kind of screwed that one up.
Basically, that we handle all of that in one room.
Yeah, right. Okay, then E1, E11, what must the VE team do if an examinee scores a passing grade on all examination elements needed for an upgrade or a new license? After grading the exams of those candidates who did pass the exam, the entire VE team must certify that the qualifications for the new license and that they have complied with the VE requirements and their application forms, and issue each a CSCE for their upgrade. And they talk about that later on. Okay, E1, E12. What must the VE team do with application form if the examinee does not pass the exam? If any candidate did not pass all the exam elements needed to complete their license upgrade, the examiner must return their application to those candidates and inform them of their grade. B1F03, under what circumstances may a dealer sell an external RF power amplifier capable of operating below 144 megahertz if it has not been granted FCC certification? Dealers may also sell non-certified amplifiers if they were purchased in used condition and resold to another amateur for use in their station. Okay, E1F04, which of the following geographic description approximately describes line A? Some U.S. amateurs along the Canadian border are not permitted to transmit on these frequencies. An imaginary line called line A runs roughly parallel to and south of the U.S.-Canada border. Amateur stations may not transmit in which of the following frequency segments if they are in the continuous 48 states and north of line A. U.S. stations north of this line may not transmit on the 420 to 430 megahertz band. Okay, what is the National Radio Quiet Zone? There is an area in Maryland, West Virginia, and Virginia surrounding the National Radio Astronomy Observatory. This is known as the National Quiet Zone. What must the control operator of a repeater operating in the 70 centimeter band do if a radio location system experiences interference from that repeater? Increased use of the 70 centimeter band for military radar system places restrictions on amateur repeater systems, which are secondary allocations in that band. This requires that the amateur station cease operation or make changes to the repeater to mitigate the interference. Okay. Which of the following type of communication may be transmitted to amateur stations in foreign countries? Note that when you are contacting station in other countries, communication is limited to remarks of a personal nature or incidental to amateur radio. No exception to the non-business rule is made for communications on behalf of nonprofit organizations. When may an amateur station send a message to a business? You can even send a message to a business over the air to order something, for example, if you don't do it regularly and as part of your normal income making activity. Okay, let's see. Which of the following types of amateur station communications are prohibited? Although it seems like a useful service, rebroadcasting propagation or weather forecast on a regular basis is not permitted. On what frequency or spread spectrum transmission permitted? Operation using spread spectrum techniques is restricted to frequencies below 220 megahertz.
Above.
Above, I'm sorry. Yeah, above. I'm getting cross-eyed. Okay. F1, E1F09. Which of the following conditions apply when transmitting spread spectrum emissions? Amateurs are permitted to use SS single sideband if it does not, no, SS is suspicious, okay. If it does not cause harmful interference to other stations using authorized emissions. In addition, the SS transmission must not be used to obscure the meaning or of any communications. What is meant by IARP? International Amateur Radio Permit for operation in certain countries of South and Central America. The IARP allows U.S. amateurs to operate without seeking a special license or permit to enter and operate from that country. Which of the following is required in order to operate in accordance with the CEPT rules in foreign countries where permitted? You must carry with you a copy of the FCC public notice DA 12-1048. Okay, E1C11. Which of the following operating arrangements allows FCC licensed U.S. citizens to operate in many foreign countries and allied amateurs from many European countries to operate in the U.S.? The CEPT, European Conference of Postal and Telecommunication Administrators, radio license. E1F02. What privileges are authorized in the U.S. to persons holding an amateur license granted by the government of Canada? Canadian amateurs operating in the U.S. may operate to the extent of the Canadian license privileges, but not in excess of the U.S. class privileges. For example, Canadian amateurs operating in the U.S. may not transmit single sideband below 14.150 megahertz, even though they may do so from their home. What must the control operator of a repeater operating in the 70 centimeter band do if a radio location system experiences interference from that repeater? Increased use of the 70 centimeter band for military radar systems replaces restrictions on amateur repeater systems, which are a secondary allocation in that band. This requires that the amateur cease operation or make changes to the repeater to mitigate the interference. E1F10. Who may be the control operator of an auxiliary station. Control operators of auxiliary stations must hold a technician, general, advanced, or extra class license. Which of the following best describes one of the standards that must be met by an external RF? Let's see what it is. There's another word there. Okay. RF. Okay, there's nothing after RF. Okay, let's read go. Which of the following best describes one of the standards that must be met by an RF power amplifier if it is to qualify for a grant of the FCC certification? To receive a grant of certification, an amplifier must satisfy the Spurious Emission Standards Specification 9.7307D or E when operating in full power output or 1500 watts, whichever is less. Okay, E1F06. Under what circumstances may the FCC issue a special temporary authority, STA, to an amateur station? Occasionally, a new method or technique of communicating comes along that isn't covered by the FCC rule or would be in violation of the rule. If sufficient good reasons are provided to the FCC, a special temporary authorization or STA may be granted to experimental amateur communication. Didn't know that one, huh, Don?
Yep, I couldn't have answered that one.
Is that what they're doing with the Pactor 4 stuff, or is that something else they're doing, allowing that per incident, so to speak?
I don't know.
I
Well,
know
hopefully
that-
we won't- after this discussion, we won't forget this one, maybe. Okay, moving right along. E1F06. Under what circumstances might the FCC issue a temporary authorization? Wait, did I read that one already? Yeah, I read that one already. I must have duplicated that one. Okay. What is the maximum bandwidth for data transmission on 60 meters? The bandwidth of transmission signal may not exceed 2.8 kilohertz. At what level below a signal's mean power level is it bandwidth determined according to FCC rules? The signal's bandwidth is the difference between the frequency at which the sideband strength is 26 dBs or 400 times lower than the mean signal. There's a little diagram in that book that shows that what they're doing there, if y'all want to get further information on it. Okay. On what portion of the 630 meter band are phone emissions permitted? Phone emissions may be transmitted anywhere in the band. What notification must be given before transmitting on a 630 meter or 2,200 meter band? This requires informing the utility technology console of your call sign and station coordinates. Okay, here's why you got to do that. How long must an operator wait after filing a notification with the utility technology console before operating on a 2,200 meter band or a 630 meter band? If after 30 days of notification, the UTC, you have not received a notice that you are within 1 kilometer of the system, you can operate. Okay, E1C10, what is the permitted mean power of any spurious emission related to the mean power of the fundamental emission from a station transmitter or external RF amplifier installed in that January 1st, 2003, and transmitting on a frequency below 30 megahertz. For stations installed in 2003 or later, spurious emissions must be at least 43 decibels below the measured power of the fundamental signal. Okay, which of the following is required in identification transmission from a balloon-borne telemetry station? It must include the call sign of the transmitting station. What must be posted at the station location of a station being operated by telecommand or by, let's see, or within 50 kilometers of the Earth's surface. The following must be posted at the station being operated by telecommand if it is on or within 50 kilometers of the Earth station. The photocopy of the station license, label with name, address, telephone number of the station licensee, label with name, address, telephone number of the control operator. What is the maximum permitted transmitter output power when operating a model craft by telecommand? The maximum power allowed for operating a model craft via telecommand is 1 watt. Which of the following amateur stations may transmit one-way communication? One-way transmission such as telecommand and telemetry are permitted for space stations, beacon stations, and the special telecommand stations that control space stations as defined in the next section of the amateur satellite service. And I think that's it, guys. Yep, that's it. I got one question back here on this one about the model craft. Is that considered with the drones that they have flying all around now? Is there any kind of regulations against what kind of power can use to fly your drone? Anybody got any ideas?
Yeah, that would fall under the same thing. So, you know, your remote control console that you would use to fly your drone or an airplane or a helicopter, it can't transmit with any more power than 1 watt.
That's not military.
This is amateur. Military
Yeah.
is a whole other story.
Yeah, right. They're not going to go across the states with a 1 watt
No.
airplane.
We've tested several amateurs whose sole purpose in getting a license was so that they could fly their drones. Because another thing that goes on other than their control of the drone is that they have the first person view. So the drone actually it becomes a transmitter itself to transmit the video view that the drone is creating or observing. And so you've basically got a control signal going to the drone, and you've got a video signal coming back from it.
I know. But you can do that with the ham license, or you have to have.
Yes, some of you have to look at your equipment and see what the frequencies are. But yes, a lot of them, you can't do the first person view without a ham license. So we've had people come in to get tested as a technician simply so that they could do first person view.
I got you.
Any other questions?
I had a question about that Canada and line A question. I think it was about UHF. Anybody know what they're trying not to interfere with? Like, is one Is the US side using something, or is it the Canada side that's using something that they don't want to interfere?
I think I remember reading that it was something on Canada's side, but I can't swear to that. That, you know, when in doubt, blame Canada.
That was my understanding as well, is that Canada's military uses it for something and I don't know what it is. So, but in earlier questions, if you recall, they talked about radar being in those frequencies. So maybe what we're thinking about here is the Canadian radar might be using those frequencies, and they could be interfered with if you're closer than, well, wherever north of line A.
It has something to do with navigation on the Great Lakes. Isn't that been partly in Canada?
Yes, yes.
Okay, cool.
Look at Chuck with his geography.
They've got
knowledge.
a section on it here of figure they show line A runs parallel and just south of the Canadian border. And then they've got a little bit more than I wrote. It said the 420 to 430 megahertz band segment is allocated to the fixed and mobile service in the international allocation table on a primary basis worldwide. Canada has allocated this band segment to its fixed and mobile service. So U.S. amateurs along the Canadian border are not permitted to transmit on these frequencies. An imaginary line called line A runs roughly parallel to and south of the U.S.-Canada border. And U.S. stations north of this line may not transmit on the 420 to 430 band. So that's you know, like I said, that's a little bit more in the book if you want to look it up.
Okay.
That's definitely Canada's fault then.
Yeah, but if you notice that the top of that limit is 430, and I don't think I've ever used that band below 440. So, you know, it probably gives you a lot of room above 430 all the way to our upper limit. So I don't think it's really too much of a burden.
Other than our net, I've never used it.
Okay, any other questions? All right, who's up for a practice exam? Well, Mike, can I get you to stop sharing real quick and I'll share out?
Yeah, I'll get out of that. Stop sharing. Do we need paper and pencil or how we can do this?
No, this is just, you know, we're gonna bring the questions up and, you know, have everybody shout out their answers. All right, did I share the correct screen?
E.
Okay, are you seeing the QRZ page?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so which of the following is illegal?
D.
D, everyone?
I agree. D.
That is correct.
Yeah, my first question, I think I read.
Okay, so when using a transceiver that displays a carrier frequency of phone signals, which of the following displayed frequencies represents the lowest frequency at which a properly adjusted lower sideband emission will be totally within the band? Anyone?
It's C.
B.
Yeah, B. B as in boy.
B?
Oh yeah, it hurts. Yeah, wrong. I'm looking at the wrong number.
So it's B. Okay, so what's the maximum legal carrier frequency on the 20-meter band for transmitting upper sideband AFSK digital signals having 1 kilohertz bandwidth?
B.
D.
Right, so that puts it right below 14.150.
Okay.
With your transceiver displaying the carrier frequency of phone signals, you hear a DX station calling CQ on 3.601 megahertz lower sideband. Is it legal to return the call using lower sideband on the same frequency?
Bravo.
B.
B,
There's a
correct.
pattern
Yeah,
here.
yeah, B.
Yeah, on lower sideband, your signal will extend down to 3.598. That is outside the phone section of the 80-meter band. So that's a big no. So what's the maximum power output permitted on the 60-meter band?
B.
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 B? We sure it's not the isotropic radiator?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's B. Where must the carrier frequency of a CW signal be to comply with FCC rules for 60-meter operation?
A.
Hey,
A.
A. Yeah, center of the channel. What is the maximum power permitted on the 2200-meter band?
1
D.
D.
Delta?
Right. D.
Yeah, 1 watt EIRP. If a station in a message forwarding system inadvertently forwards a message that it's in violation of FCC rules, who is primarily accountable for the rules violation?
Delta.
D.
Yeah, D.
Yeah, it's always the originating station. What action or actions should you take if your digital message forwarding system inadvertently forwards a communication that violates FCC rules?
Charlie.
C. C, Charlie.
See? Correct. If an amateur station is installed aboard a ship or aircraft, what condition must be met before the station is operated?
C, Charlie.
Charlie.
C.
Charlie?
Charlie.
Yes, sir.
Which of the following describes authorization or licensing required when operating an amateur station aboard a U.S. registered vessel in international waters?
B.
Bravo.
B.
Bravo.
Bravo.
What special operating frequency restrictions are imposed on slow scan TV transmissions?
Charlie.
Charlie?
Charlie.
Correct.
Yes.
Who must be in physical control of the station apparatus of an amateur station aboard any vessel or craft that is documented or registered in the United States?
Delta.
D, Delta.
Delta, correct. Except in some parts of Alaska, what is the maximum power permitted on the 630-meter band?
B.
B.
All right, so I heard a Bravo. Anybody for an Alpha?
I think it's Alpha.
Alpha, I think. That's
Alpha.
what gets me.
Alpha. Hooray, we got 14 out of 14. Try another section.
Sure.
So which of the following constitutes a spurious emission?
Charlie.
Got a Charlie? Anybody else?
Yep, Charlie.
Charlie. Which of the following is an acceptable bandwidth for digital radio mondial base voice or SSTV digital transmissions made on the HF amateur bands.
D Delta.
Delta,
D.
yeah, 3 kilohertz. Within what distance must an amateur station protect an FCC monitoring facility from harmful interference?
B
Bravo.
Bravo.
Bravo. What must be done before placing an amateur station within an officially designated wilderness area or wildlife preserve or an area listed in the National Register of Historic Places?
A,
A.
Alpha. What is a national radio quiet zone?
Alpha.
A.
A,
Alpha. Anybody remember which state that's located in?
That's Virginia, and Maryland.
Virginia.
All right. Which of the following additional rules apply if you're installing an amateur station antenna at a site at or near a public use airport?
You have to be B.
D Delta. D. Huh?
D,
Delta.
D.
Delta,
D.
Delta. To what type of regulations does PRB-1 apply?
Bravo.
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 D.
Burn
D.
quiet.
Bravo.
Yeah.
What limitations may the FCC place on an amateur station if its signal causes interference to domestic broadcast reception, assuming that the receivers involved are in good engineering design?
A
Alpha.
Alpha.
A.
Which amateur stations may be operated under RACES rules?
Alpha.
A.
Alpha. What frequencies are authorized to an amateur station operating under RACES rules?
Delta.
Delta.
Yeah.
Yeah, Delta. What does PRB-1 require of regulations affecting amateur radio?
D. Delta.
D.
Yeah, reasonable accommodations. What must the control operator of a repeater operating on the 70-centimeter band do if a radio location system experiences interference from that repeater?
Charlie.
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 Bravo,
Charlie.
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 Charlie. All right, we got 12 out of 12.
Go.
We
I
are
wonder if Don will let him take this section right now.
All right, let's do the next section real quick. So what is the maximum bandwidth for the data emissions on 60 meters?
Alpha.
Yeah, alpha. Which of the following types of communications may be transmitted to amateur stations in foreign countries?
D. Delta.
Delta.
Yep.
Delta. How do the control operator responsibilities of a station under automatic control differ from one under local control?
Bravo.
Bravo.
Bravo. What is meant by IARP?
D.
D. Delta.
Delta. Yep.
Delta. When may an automatically controlled station originate third-party communications?
D. Delta.
D Delta. Yep.
Yeah. Delta. Which of the following is required in order to operate in accordance with CEPT rules in foreign countries where permitted?
Charlie.
D. Charlie.
Charlie. At what power level below a signal's mean power level is its bandwidth determined according to FCC rules?
Delta.
Delta.
Damn it. Charlie. I mean, Bravo.
D. Dan-
Bravo.
Bravo. What is the maximum permissible duration of a remotely controlled station's transmissions if its control link malfunctions?
Bravo.
B. Bravo.
B.
Bravo, 3 minutes. What is the highest modulation index permitted at the highest modulation frequency for angle modulation below 29 megahertz?
Bravo.
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 Bravo. What is the permitted mean power of any spurious emissions relative to the mean power of the fundamental emission from a station transmitter or external RF amplifier installed after January 1, 2003 and transmitting on a frequency below 30 megahertz?
Charlie.
Charlie. And that
Charlie.
long.
Which of the following operating arrangements allow an FCC licensed US citizen to operate in many European countries and alien amateurs from many European countries to operate in the US?
D. Delta.
Delta.
Delta. On what portion of the 630 meter band are phone emissions permitted?
B. Bravo.
Bravo.
Bravo, the entire band. What notifications must be given before transmitting on the 630 meter or 200 and 2200 meter bands?
D. Delta.
D.
Yeah, utility companies often use transmissions on those frequencies using the power lines. So you need to make sure you're clear with that.
Yeah, it's the only answer that mentions coordinates that I've run
Yeah.
across.
How long must an operator wait after filing a notification with the United Technology Council before operating on the 2200 meter or 630 meter band?
C. Charlie.
D.
30 days. Okay, we got 13 out of 14. Not bad. Okay, what's the definition of telemetry?
Alpha.
A. Alpha.
Yeah, the key there, telemetry is made up of two Greek words. Tele is distance and metry is for measure. So you're measuring at a distance.
Where the club is, right?
Yeah. Which of the following may transmit special codes intended to obscure the meaning of messages?
Alpha.
D.
Yeah.
A.
Alpha.
Alpha.
Yeah, A.
What is a space telecommand station?
Bravo.
Delta.
Bravo. Which of the following is required in the identification transmissions from a balloon-borne telemetry station?
A.
Alpha.
Alpha.
A.
Alpha. What must be posted at the station location of a station being operated by telecommand on or within 50 kilometers of the Earth's surface?
Alpha.
A. Alpha.
Yeah, all three of those. What is the maximum permitted transmitter output power when operating a model craft by telecommand?
Delta.
D.
Yeah, Delta. Which HF amateur bands have frequencies authorized for space stations?
B.
B. Yeah, B.
C,
Oh,
Charlie.
no.
C, Charlie. C.
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 Which VHF amateur bands have frequencies authorized for space stations?
A alpha.
Alpha, yep.
Yeah,
B.
yeah.
Alpha. Which UHF amateur bands have frequencies authorized for space stations?
A.
A.
Alpha.
Alpha. Which amateur stations are eligible to be telecommand stations of space stations, subject to the privileges of the class of operator license held by the control operator of the station?
B. Bravo.
Bravo.
Bravo. Which amateur stations are eligible to operate as space station, as Earth stations?
Charlie,
D.
Delta.
D. Delta.
Delta. Which of the following amateur stations may transmit one-way communications?
Alpha.
D.
Alpha.
Okay, these are one-way.
Alpha.
A alpha.
Alpha. All right, not bad. Let's only two more. For which types of out-of-pocket expenses do the Part 97 rules state that VEs and VECs may be reimbursed?
Alpha.
A alpha.
A.
Alpha. Who does Part 97 task with maintaining the pools of questions for all U.S. amateur license examinations?
Delta.
Delta.
Delta. What is a volunteer examiner coordinator?
Alpha.
Alpha,
Yeah, it's an organization. Which of the following best describes a volunteer examiner accreditation process?
Delta.
Delta.
Delta. What is the minimum passing score on all amateur operator license examinations?
A.
Alpha,
Alpha.
A.
We all know that one.
Who is responsible for the proper conduct and necessary supervision during an amateur operator license examination session?
Delta,
D. Delta.
Yeah, it's gonna be Delta. What should a VE do if a candidate fails to comply with the examiner's instructions during an amateur operator license examination?
Alpha,
B. Oh, A. Yeah.
To which of the following examinees may a VE not administer an examination?
Alpha.
yep, A,
Yeah, you can administer to friends, but not relatives. What may be the penalty for a VE who fraudulently administers or certifies an examination?
Bravo.
Yeah. Bravo. What must the administering VEs do after the administration of a successful examination for an amateur operator license?
Bravo,
Bravo.
Bravo. What must the VE team do if an examinee scores a passing grade on all examination elements needed for an upgrade or new license?
Charlie.
C.
Charlie. What must the VE team do with the application form if the examinee does not pass the exam?
D Delta.
Return. And D.
Delta. All right. I think we're down to the last one. On what frequencies are spread spectrum transmissions permitted?
Bravo.
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 Bravo. What privileges are authorized in the United States to persons holding an amateur service license granted by the government of Canada?
Alpha.
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 Alpha. Under what circumstances may a dealer sell an external RF power amplifier capable of operation below 144 megahertz if it has not been granted FCC certification?
B.
Bravo.
Bravo.
Bravo. Which of the following geographic descriptions approximately describes line A?
Alpha.
Alpha. Yep.
Alpha.
Alpha. Amateur stations may not transmit in which of the following frequency segments if they're located in the contiguous 48 states and north of line A?
Bravo.
Bravo.
B.
Yeah, Bravo. Under what circumstances might the FCC issue a special temporary authority or STA to an amateur station?
Delta. Delta.
Yeah, Delta.
Delta.
When may an amateur station send a message to a business?
Alpha.
Alpha.
Which of the following types of amateur station communications are prohibited?
Delta.
A.
Delta.
Delta.
Yeah,
Which of the following conditions apply when transmitting spread spectrum emissions?
Alpha.
A.
Alpha. Who may be the control operator of an auxiliary station?
Alpha.
Alpha. Anybody else?
D.
Delta.
Don't.
Alpha. Which of the following best describes one of the standards that must be met by an external RF power amplifier if it is to qualify for a grant of FCC certification?
Bravo.
Bravo.
Yeah, Bravo. Not bad. So that's a complete run of everything that we covered today. Any questions? I would say that, expect things will probably get a little bit more difficult. This particular section, it's going to be a lot of, rote memorization with rules and regulations. As we move into some of the more difficult things, especially once we start talking about circuits and, mathematics and things like that, It will probably get a little bit more difficult, but please use the group's IO to communicate. If you have questions, send them in there. We've got, a group of us who are here to help out. Please don't, be afraid to ask. We're here to help you out and do what we can do to, help you be successful with this. So, any last questions?
Nope.
All right, I am going to stop recording.